Look, had to get on my grind, ain't got no time to be making excuses. Success in my mind, I hit up Sean when I land up in Houston. Him and Gentry told me, Ayo G, when you chasing your dreams, gotta take that risk, so I stake my chips, put it all on me. It is what it is, put all the chips all on me, yeah. I don't talk too much, put the money up all on me, yeah. I'ma put 10 bands, 100 bands, millions all on me, yeah. I'ma put 10 bands, 100 bands, millions.
Well, thank you for coming on. And we're going to talk about a subject today that I'm pretty passionate about, which is non-traditional school. I feel like there is so many things that traditional school leaves out. And for some reason, it's been the same way for 100 years. And people keep doing the same things, even though it doesn't work. And so I don't know why they don't change it. It's pretty frustrating. And I'm sure a lot of parents feel the same way. But you have interviewed hundreds of homeschool parents. And so I'm sure you've learned a lot, and I'm sure you can share a ton of your knowledge with people that are either looking into, non-traditional school or wanting to know about it or already doing it and want to improve. So welcome on.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you so much for having me. Well, I would disagree with one thing. I think the school system is working exactly as planned. It doesn't work for us as parents or the kids all the time, but this is how they designed it from back in the 1800s when Horace Mann went to Prussia and saw how they were kind of forming their military and thought, hey, this is a good system. Let's bring it to the United States. And then John Dewey implemented it starting in Massachusetts, and the Rockefellers started investing, creating the Board of Education in the early 1900s. And the funny part about that, it's like when you think about, oil tycoons wanting to educate our children, are they going to want to create entrepreneurs that would be competitors to their business? That seems unlikely if they were good businessmen. So they are on record for saying, we want a nation of obedient workers that are smart enough to do the job, but not smart enough to question it. And that's how we get the system that we have today. And it hasn't changed in 100 years, other than they are taking our kids even earlier and keeping them for longer periods. And the result isn't like kids that even do well on test scores. Our reading has gone down over the years. So I think that's kind of what they want with, when you read books like Dumbing Us Down from John Taylor Gatto, this is exactly what the school system is intended to do. But are parents willing to do something about it is the question.
Yeah, I think whenever you go through the traditional system and you graduate and maybe either go to college, maybe not go to college, but that's where everybody thinks that the path that they're supposed to go. And then they wonder why they're still in debt and they don't understand anything about money. And you're basically starting over from zero whenever you're 18. And the same thing happened to me. And I'm trying to prevent that with my son. And so we're definitely looking at creating my own, I guess I'll call it like private education, because can't do it at home. But I have a building that's about to be ready that I'm going to hire a teacher and kind of build my own curriculum. And it'll be mainly life skill based stuff outside of basic reading, writing, math, which is all you really need to be successful in life is some of the basics. And then you actually have to have some life skills and understand how money works to be successful no matter what you do.
Oh, absolutely. I'm guilty of being part of that system too, where, you are being told where to go and what to learn your entire life. Then you get to be 18, and if you don't want to be a loser, you have to go to college, right? Make your parents proud.
Big time.
And then you get out 4 years later, you still know nothing about yourself, what your interests are. You just pretty much know how to pass an exam. So how to memorize some information, regurgitate it, and then forget it a little while later. And then, you have all this debt. So what did I do? I became a government worker because that's what my parents did. A lot of people become teachers because that's what they've seen as a profession for 12 to 16 years, right? You do what you are familiar with. And I've always said this, they never hand you a list of all the jobs that exist and say, what ones do you have questions about? What ones interest you? What do you want to know more about? How can we even make kids think that at 18 they should decide where to spend $200,000 to be what? We didn't give them a list of what their options were.
And what they want to
so
do.
convoluted.
And what they want to do for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And they basically are starting over when they're 18. And so how would you expect them to know what they want to do? Because they haven't done anything. They've just been learning history and stuff. And so you expect them like, okay, figure it out. And of course, they're not going to be able to. And it takes most people a really long time, to stumble through things that they don't want to do. And then the sad part is most people, especially if they graduate with a bunch of debt, they take on a job to help pay that debt. They take on a car note. They get an apartment. And then, even worse, if they decide to have kids, then they're just stuck. And then they're never going to be able to leave the job they're in, even though they want to. And then the cycle continues.
1,000%. And the worst part about it is that is by design.
Yeah.
Like we were all duped.
Yep. And it's just been happening so long. It's just like, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be. Well, no, not really. The whole world's changed a whole bunch and nothing's the same as it was 100 years ago.
Right.
Tell us your story on how you got into the homeschool thing. I know you mentioned that you got a government job. Was that right out of college? So you went to college for what?
Well, I bounced around for, I'll be a history teacher. Oh, well, I never really was actually into history. So then I was like, I'll be an accountant. Why? I don't know. And then it was like my last semester of college at the University of Albany in New York. And I went up to my dean and I said, "Hi, I'm Cheryl. Look at my transcript and tell me what my major can be where I can actually graduate on time." So he looked at it and he was like, I guess we could use this course and put that under here and to fulfill that requirement. And you can take 6 communication courses and be a communication major. I was like, all right, I'm a majoring in communications now. So it's like just so arbitrary, right? Like, what does that even mean? So, I'm a podcast host now, so maybe that paid off somehow, but probably not. And then, my parents were government workers. So I did a year selling high interest loans at like 26% interest rate to people with bad credit. That was my first job.
For the government?
No, that was just for like Citigroup.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And then took a civil service exam. Both my parents were telling me to do that. And then got into government work in the state of New York. So that's where I kind of like climbed the ladder for 16 years, was a supervisor, saw a lot of probably wasted money, government.
Who would have thought?
Lots of time spent not, you pay your tax dollars. I don't think people would really want it spent that way. But a lot of waste, a lot of abuse within the system and for what they told us that we were supposed to be doing even,
What was your job title or what was your job duties for the government?
So they changed. First, it started with the tax department, collecting overdue taxes, basically stealing the money out of people's accounts. And then when you get into like, are income taxes even legal? It's a whole different ballgame there. But then moving into the Department of Labor, where, we were giving unemployment benefits to people who wanted to go to school and collect unemployment. It's like, I sat there thinking, well, I went to school and worked, but these people want to go to school and collect unemployment. So that's a thing in New York.
I was about to say, how does that work?
That might not be federally, but in the state of New York, there is a program that will allow you to go to school but still collect unemployment benefits. So we did that for a little bit, again, against my beliefs on what, there's no reason that you can't do both. But then I moved into the Office of Medicaid fraud. So what I thought I was doing was like finding Medicaid fraud with like you being a recipient, collecting a benefit, saying your name is Joe Smith that actually has Medicaid, but really you're Sean Lynch. Yeah. I soon came to realize that we were actually collecting information on the providers. Like that's who we were trying to find out who was fraudulent. This nurse says that she works 29 hours 8 days a week and we're paying it because it's a pay and chase sort of system. It's not like it was even that long ago, but apparently they didn't have enough information to put into place to like not pay that up front. We just believed her that she was working 28 hours a day. Yeah. Things that were just not even feasible. Dentists collecting Medicaid money, taking out the same tooth every 6 months. Yeah. So it's like, These are easy algorithms you can put in place to not pay this money in the first place. And then I went into sort of the food stamp and welfare industry, working on internal audits and being a liaison for federal audits. So it was eye-opening. I think it gave me a good experience, but it definitely was like a waste of life sitting in a cubicle for 16 years of my life that I'll never get back.
And explain the audit thing.
So the auditing was funny because, I would be working with USDA and telling our people in our agency, like, you need to provide this documentation to them. And, it was funny because it was like every year we'd have the same finding. And I'm like, why can't we just get it together and like fix the thing, right? Like, that's my mindset. So I'm like, well, I have a team of people that are kind of twiddling their thumbs all day. Let's put them in action. And am I even understanding what this finding is? Because maybe I'm just not smart enough, right? So I'd, talk to the director of that, bureau and like, am I understanding it right? We're just not reviewing this. And all they want us to do is review this monthly. Yeah, you got it. Okay, I got a team. Let's put them on it. We can review this. They need something to do and you want this done. And it was like a real big eye opener for me when they were like, no, we don't want to fix the problem. If we fix the problem, they're going to audit us even further and find something else that we don't want them to uncover. So we're happy with getting this finding every year and constantly saying we're working on it. And they're happy saying, we found something. Look, it's still not resolved. And, that's what we found. And then they can pack up their books and their laptops and be on their way. And we'll see them again next year.
And everybody continues to get funded.
Yes.
And then it just...
Everybody gets our tax dollars for that.
Yeah, what a terrible system. But
So
you
bad.
kind of saw it with when Elon tried to come in and like expose a lot of it, and everybody got a little bit crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's true. It's kind of sad. It's really sad. It makes you sad to pay taxes and know that it just like goes and burns and a massive waste. And in the public sector, or it would never do that because you have to run a company, you have to make money, you have to report to your shareholders. And with the government, all these people are just like trying to get more money. How do we get more funding? How do we do less and get more?
Yeah, and the worst part was the contractors that we would hire to do work, like say Cuomo's buddy gets a job as a contractor, and we're paying them our tax dollars, but they're a private company.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we have state workers that could do the job. They just aren't spending the money on that. They'd rather take the money because to help out his buddies. And I know of a specific contract where the contractor couldn't handle the job. They didn't know enough about the program. They didn't have the resources to actually do the job. So then we paid state workers overtime to fix everything that the contractor didn't do. So the contractor got paid and the state workers got overtime. All on our tax dollars.
What led you from the government job to the homeschooling path?
So that started during 2020. I kind of had the realization, like a lot of people did, that maybe our government doesn't have our best interests at mind. And I didn't connect the dots then with like where I worked to where I would be sending my kids. But my son was in a private daycare, but they still had to answer to the government for, because they were legit on the books.
It's the same system. It could be slightly better education as if you're like rating them that way, but it's still the exact same system. My son went to a private school for a little while and then public. It's the same thing.
Yeah, because they all have to answer to the government. They're all collecting some sort of government funding. Yeah, and they wanted to start masking 3-year-olds in New York. And my husband and I were like, absolutely not. That makes no sense. You're not. We'll sit here and like wear your mask in an airport or whatever because we're choosing to go on a flight. But we're not letting you do that to our kid on a daily basis. It's detrimental to him when he's learning speech, emotions. Come on.
3-year-old kids won't even wear a mask for more than 2 seconds anyways. Like, what's the joke?
Right.
Yeah.
So where's the logic in it? I was like, show me the study where all the daycare providers died because 3-year-olds weren't masking.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, okay, if it's logical, maybe I'll do this. But there's nothing that didn't exist. And I was pretty on top of, looking at studies and all that. But so yeah, my husband and I were like, we're pulling them out of daycare. I think we were the only family too that pulled out of that daycare for that reason, which is sad. But everybody else just went along with it. And so he was home with me. I was working from home at that time because of COVID.
Yeah.
And I was so afraid that he wasn't going to socialize. So the only people actually getting together at that time were homeschoolers because they really weren't afraid of COVID or germs or whatever. They weren't masking. And I was like, all right, this is where we'll go on Facebook, find some local groups and just go like hang out, meet these people. And, I started doing that and I just kept having all these questions for them, like talking to them like they were from like another planet, like what does your day look like? How do you know that they're going to like be okay in life? What if they want to go to college? What if you don't teach them something that they need? How will they socialize? And like
I think that's people's biggest argument argument when they say, oh, your kid's not going to be socialized if you do this.
Yeah.
What's the response to that? Because that's what everybody says. They're not going to be socialized, whether it's even college or traditional school or anything. That's their biggest argument.
Well, I think my biggest rebuttal is I was always yelled at for socializing in school. Like they were like, you're not here to socialize, you're here to learn.
Yeah.
And in the schools now, and I know this for a fact because I've interviewed so many teachers that have quit their jobs to start homeschooling their kids, they do not even let the kids have much of a social life. Lunch is like assigned seats in a lot of schools, and it's cut down from where it used to maybe be an hour to a half an hour to 15 minutes to eat and 15 minutes to go play outside. So the actual socialization, where is that happening? On the bus maybe? And there you've got kids with cell phones, all different ages. They're showing your kid God knows what. What's the next thing they're going to flip on YouTube or TikTok or Snapchat?
That's the biggest problem is the socialization you think they're getting is you're just learning a lot of bad shit.
Yeah.
That's what I did in school. Like that's where you learn all your bad stuff. I didn't learn it from my parents or anybody else I was around. You learn it from other bad kids, and then you're not necessarily pressured, but you're always either trying to fit in or trying to be a part of something. And so it raises the risk of your kid either trying to do the same thing.
And even just getting exposed to something on someone's phone, that other child might not have even had an intention of showing, but the next thing they flipped to, the next swipe was something inappropriate that your child's going to see and can't unsee. And you don't even know that it happened.
Yeah.
Because you just sent them on the bus.
Yeah, they're getting influenced by a lot that's out of your control.
Yeah.
In school. So I think the negative definitely outweighs the whole positive reasoning of socialization for sure.
Yes. I think it's a scare tactic for sure. Just like, what if your kid doesn't go to school, they won't be or doesn't go to college, they won't be successful in life. That's a scare tactic. As with many things, as with like social distancing. I mean, it's all a scare tactic because you have to control people when there's so many of us and so little at the top. These scare tactics, your kid won't be socialized. But we live in an age where you have unlimited access to vehicles and, to find groups through Facebook or a different social media outlet. This one's meeting at parks on Mondays. This one's doing field trips every week to museums or whatnot. Here's a forest school that meets on Fridays. Like there's so many. Here's music lessons that happen at this co-op. Like there's so much that it's just, I think they're actually better socialized, and not to say that you have to homeschool, but without the traditional system, because they can actually form relationships with all different ages, not just everybody that was born in the same 9-month period.
Yeah, and then most of the time, I would think that you have parents that are a little bit more involved in the kid's life. So, putting your kid in those types of programs or sports or whatever, you're probably going to have parents that the kids are probably going to be a little bit better quality than just 50 people at school, right? In those groups like that, because they're probably going to have parents that are involved in their life a little bit more, spend more time with them, teach them a little bit better values. And so in school, it's just like a toss up. It's like, you might be around some good kids. You might be around probably 90% of them are bad. Probably 10% good is usually just how the world works anyways. But
yeah, from my experience, and my kids are young, but from my experience personally is that if I'm there to get to see it, right? Like, okay, I see, these kids might be not the best influence. Is it a one-off or is this every time?
Yeah.
You're there, you can kind of, not that you have to step in every time, but you're just like noting it in your mind. And when it's enough, you can choose to say like, okay, we're going to go a different path. Maybe we're going to start our own group that meets up. Maybe we're going to go try a different one. There's new groups forming all the time, like from, hey, we're meeting here this week, come check it out. And even if, like, say your people aren't in that group, like in 6 months, they might be, because it's just kind of, a revolving door, so to speak. Like, new people are trying homeschooling all the time. But in school, you're not even aware of most of it. And the schools, and this is taken from the teachers I've interviewed, the schools are not going to necessarily call you for most things. Not
Of
because
course.
they don't care, but they don't want their school to look bad.
Yes.
And it would be negative, and then it gets put on social media. So they'd rather you not know about it. So that's really the harm.
And then the whole standardized testing thing, they're trying to not give all their kids a bunch of Fs, right? Like if they fail every kid in their class, even though they're not doing as good as they should be doing, then it looks bad on the teacher, looks bad on the school.
Yes. And when you think about, like, why are there standardized tests? In an education system, you do need some metric to measure how well a teacher's doing, a student is doing. So that is the method they use. But if you're choosing an alternative education system, I mean, you wouldn't actually need a test because you're there to witness it daily.
What happens in the homeschool programs, I guess, maybe the ones that you follow or the people that you interview, is there some test that people take at some point or some level that they get to? Like, how does it work on just keeping track of their progress or where they are in reading, writing, math, whatever it is?
Yeah. So every state in the U.S. has different requirements for what they deem acceptable as, you being a homeschooling family. So I'm in the state of New York, which has the most rigid, but even still, it's not that bad. But we have the most rigid requirements. And other states, some you just tell them, hey, I'm homeschooling. And they're like, cool. And that's literally all.
So they provide the test that you take in New York?
So in New York, like in the strictest state that we have, I have to give them a notice of intent to homeschool in, say, like August. And that's just to let them know my kid won't be enrolling. And then I would provide them what we call an IHIP, which is an individualized home something plan. And and that's just kind of telling them what I plan to do throughout the year.
Okay.
Me being a former government worker, less is more. Nobody's reading it anyway. The only time they're really looking at this, and I'm willing to bet this 95% of the time, the only people that are actually reading this is if there's like a police report that you've beat your children and they need some sort of evidence to arrest you. But like nobody cares. They're not even looking at it, but it's to put it on record. This is what I plan to do with my child. And then every quarter I report what we did and how well my child did. So, hey, a good example, I'm going to do the Good and the Beautiful reading program with my son. And in New York, they do tell you like 13 subjects that you're required to do. Not how much you have to do them. As a whole, you have to meet the 225 hours a year. So you can break that up, because I think that's 225 hours should be the full school year for a kid. So you have to do the equivalent of that. But when you include cooking breakfast together in the morning, you're baking together, they're coming with you to, say, the bank, or, you're bringing your son to a donut shop and you're talking about how many donuts do you think they sell? Let's calculate how much would they make. That's all school. That all counts. So when you get creative like that and think of it in those terms, you're easily filling your whole day with educational things. And then every quarter I just write like, this is what we learned. Honestly, this is how I do it. I'm probably going to get arrested, but I bring up ChatGPT, have it record my voice. I go through my phone. This is where I've taken pictures and videos. We went to the Fort William Henry Museum. We went to the park and looked at, butterflies and, or we watched birds, forming a nest outside of our window, and made a journal on the day that they laid the eggs, the day that the bird hatched, what the parents were feeding it, and when it flew off. And my son drew in that journal. That covers art, that covers science, that covers reading and writing, because he's making all this in his journal, right? So we're covering all these subjects right there. Even math, 3 eggs and how many made it, how many didn't, how many do we have left? So it's really everywhere. You can easily get this done. You can even turn that into a history lesson, like, where did they come from? In geography, where did this bird originate from? And, so you really can go into that.
I'm homeschooling him, I guess, the whole time I'm with him then.
Oh, yeah, you are. I've seen your videos. You are.
We're learning the whole entire time that we're together. We're always trying to teach him some lesson or trying to help him figure something out. The art thing he has figured out. He loves just drawing cars and just doing stuff on his own. But, the biggest thing for me was the lack of financial education that you get from public school, and I went to a Catholic school when I was younger, and it's the same. I didn't learn one single thing about money. And that to me is like one of the biggest problems, because when you're 18 and you're supposed to be off on your own, you make a bunch of bad financial decisions because they never told you anything about them. What do they do in a homeschool program? Is it the ones that are out there that I guess you can follow? Do they have money lessons, or is it just up to the parents to teach about the money or anything financial?
Well, that's the beauty of it. Like, you can teach your kid whatever you want. So, for instance, on my podcast, I interviewed a company that created a unit study called Wealthy and Rad. And they get into that, and they read books like I think there's actually a teen version of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, cool. Which is just assets, liabilities. People think it's a real estate book, but it's a super simple way just to assets, liabilities, the whole book.
And so they have all different books throughout their course
I'll check it out.
that
That's
they
cool.
use to teach kids about money. The Tuttle twins,
I've seen those online. Is that mainly money, or is it just life lessons and life skills? And
Tuttle twins is more like teaching your child about freedom, responsibility, what the Constitution is about.
okay,
Yes, they have a course to Tuttle Twins Academy where they get into money and investments. I wouldn't say that that's like, it's
big part of
all like supplemental stuff
Sure.
too, but that's the cool thing about, well, whether you homeschool or not, these are things that you're going to want to teach your kid, because they're not going to want to create a whole nation of entrepreneurs. That would not help the Rockefellers of this world, right? Like, they need worker bees.
even though the money doesn't have to do with entrepreneurship, because you just need financial education to make good decisions, because not everybody's going to be an entrepreneur. Just like they're not cut out for it. It's stressful. You have a lot of responsibility. Not everybody wants to do it. But if you learn financial responsibility, you can at least still live an amazing life and actually still get wealthy with a regular job. If you don't want any headache and you're nervous to be an entrepreneur, you can still make a lot of money if you have some financial education and you understand how investing works and real estate works and just money and interest rates, and not getting yourself into bad situations when you're 18 and having to start over. So it's still odd that they don't teach that at all, even today. Like, it's like with the whole AI and everything's moving so fast, they don't just say, hey, you have to learn about financial education for 4 years.
Well, I guess to that I would say, Sean, you have to put together a unit study and
I am. That's what I'm
have
doing.
this for a sales, because, and that's what I see, like, interviewing homeschooling families. I see so many parents that are like, hey, I created this, and a unit study is just like basically
I
a
was
topic
gonna ask that,
that you can just condense into, like, you could do one on birds,
Yeah.
Let's just learn for 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, like, here's what we're learning. And there's multiple subjects within that, right? So it can be a reading, a writing, all of that is entwined under a topic.
Okay.
So you're still fulfilling what if your state requires you to do, all different subjects. Some are like, just let us know your kid's alive at the end of the year and we're good. But, there's ways to fulfill those state requirements. But yeah, you can pick, or you can create something if you see that there's a need for it. And I think there's definitely, I still don't know good money management,
Yeah. And again, it goes back to, they can't teach their kids because they didn't learn it in school.
Yes.
And so unless you really, it's after years and 25 years of mistakes, you're like, oh, don't do this. And so, yeah, I've actually been working on that. So I am working on more of a financial side of it. And I'm more interested in that. It definitely wouldn't be, reading, writing, math. It would be more in addition to like the stuff that I'm doing with him and the stuff that I'm working on that hopefully I can make available to everyone at some point.
Yeah.
Because that's number one, I'm most passionate about it and I know the most about it. Like, I'm probably not the best at reading and writing, terrible at writing, but everything else I think I can.
Well, that's the nice part about it, because then a parent can go somewhere else to fulfill that requirement. But if this is something they want their kid to know, and just when you think about like the school day, like, there's no parent-teacher meeting in the beginning of the year saying, this is what I am teaching your child, and this is what you, the parent, are responsible for, right? Like, we send our kids off, we pay the taxes, and we assume they're learning everything they need to know to survive in life. And then they busy us with after school sports and,
Yeah.
Bowling league and a birthday party that every kid in the class has to be invited to, every weekend. And it's like, where's their time to know where the gap is?
8 hours a day, that they're probably only learning for about 2. And
Not even that.
maybe
I'd say 2 minutes.
maybe.
I'd say 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think that they said when I went to the little home teacher thing when it was first starting, they said, yeah, we don't want to stress them out too much. And it's like, well, so what are you teaching them? Anything? Like, I don't know. They're never looking to have homework. And not that you need it if you were doing your stuff you need to do during the day. But I feel like it's almost all busy work. You can learn whatever you wanted in 2 hours. And then the rest of it should be life skill stuff. That just makes the most sense. It's like, hey, this is the basics. And then the rest of the day, we're going to teach you actually how things work in life and what you need to be successful in any path you choose. It doesn't have to be entrepreneurship. It could be whatever. You could be a doctor, but you still need all this information or you're going to be a worse doctor.
Yes. And I mean, a typical homeschooler would only spend 2 hours a day on work anyways.
Yeah.
The rest is like doing things to better their life or something they're interested in. And I say better their life, like I'm thinking of like a woman I interviewed whose daughter was really into horses. So she did a whole lot of equestrian stuff outside of that 2 hours of learning the history, but then you're also able to, okay, can we pull in horses into her learning history?
I had this
and all
idea,
that?
and I'm not a software guy, but with AI, maybe it's possible now. It's like, with AI now, why can't you create the learning based on what your kid's interested in? So you could say, my kid loves dinosaurs. And so then all the learning was based around dinosaurs. So you'd actually look at it, or it was based around horses. Like, hey, here's the math stuff, but it's going to be based around horses. And here's all the stories. And, that's how you teach them in reading, writing, math, whatever you're teaching them.
Yeah.
And I had that idea like 6 months ago when AI kind of started taking off, but I've tried to do too many software companies. I don't need to take on one more thing right now, but it would be really cool because I think it would be super beneficial.
Yeah.
If somebody, all the kids use iPads now, but if there was some thing that they could just pick, and it's like math, he likes cars. Math, she likes ponies. Math, and it creates the whole curriculum based on all the stuff they're interested in.
Oh, yeah. And that's more like what they call the child-led learning or unschooling. That's kind of a term that is used a lot now. And I think people think unschooling is just your kid sits on a video game system all day, but what it really is that you like look at what interests your child. Like for my son, it's four-wheelers and dirt bikes, and you would turn, every subject that they have to learn, that you want them to learn, into like teach it through a theme that they are interested in.
Yeah.
And yes, it's not as, I mean, I can go on ChatGPT and be like, okay, how should I teach him how to blend sounds? He's 7 years old, through dirt bikes. And even that can give you, and it's super helpful because it's relevant to their life. Because what does a 7-year-old care about blending, right? Like they don't have to write a letter to anyone nowadays. They can, you could text someone or whatever, but it's just not relevant to them. But when they want to like watch a show on Netflix and they're like, how do I find dirt bikes, or a YouTube video on dirt bikes?
That's why YouTube is so successful, because the kids, you say, hey, I want to see a bunch of dirt bike videos, and they'll just sit there and watch them because that's what they're interested in.
So that's a good opportunity to say, okay, well, how would you spell it? What do you think it starts with? That might be D, right? And yep, find the D. And so it's unconventional, but that's relevant to their life, and they are learning through that.
It's kind of what we're doing with him, or how I can get him to learn a little bit about business and money. Always kind of apply it to the stuff that he likes, and we started taking him into those businesses because I can tell him all the stuff he wants, but if he hears it from these other people too, and it's all different walks of life and every kind of business, and he's starting to really put two and two together now that we've been in so many different stores, whether it's a pizza place or donut shop or whatever. I mean, now he goes in there and wants to ask his own questions. How many pizzas do you sell here? Oh, that's a lot. Okay, well, how many people work here? And he's like really starting to understand the basics. And then now we're starting to get into like marketing. So now I'm tying in marketing to those businesses. So now he knows what marketing, the simple definition of it is, but then now we're like going into business, and it's like, hey, how do you think they get people in here? And then we'll ask the person behind the counter, how do you get people in here? Well, we have a big sign, and then we also run social media ads, and like he's kind of like starting to put together like why someone comes back into the business and how you get someone into your business to buy stuff from you. And so it's cool, but him doing it is a lot better than him sitting in a chair. If I was like teaching him from a chalkboard and telling him that stuff, he'd be like, I don't think he would have absorbed any of it. He was like, why do I care? But I think him doing it with me, he's like, and it gets to be super interactive. He's learning a lot, like super quick. And so it's been really fun to watch him.
And that's free. Like any parent can do that. You can walk into any business and talk to them and have that conversation with your kid. We don't think of it in those terms. So that's whether you homeschool or not. You can do that, right? There's just learning everywhere, and we're just so like trained that learning can only be at a desk.
School. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and it's actually like anything but. Because I mean, do you remember what you learned in school?
No.
I spent so much time there.
I haven't used one thing in my life, but besides like the absolute basic writing skill of just writing a sentence, and the same thing, math, like basic math. Like I'm not the greatest at math, but I can add numbers and subtract numbers and figure out how my P&L looks, right? So that's the only things I've ever used. And so past the 6th to 8th grade, I mean, you really don't need much.
And even the history that they teach us, it wasn't relevant. So like I never remembered anything.
I don't
about
either.
it.
I don't remember any of it either.
But there's like fun ways of teaching history. Like, for example, when I do teach, like the Tuttle Twins have an America's History book, and it's teaching it through story. So it's like you're following these two kids on their adventure learning history through things. And it was cool because we were kind of reading about like the French and Indian War, which like I went to public school. I thought that was just the French versus the Indians, and it's not. But, so it was like I was learning. My son saw me kind of like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. That's so cool. And then it got into like, this happened in upstate New York. And I'm like, well, that's where we are. Like, where can we go visit?
Yeah.
So, I looked up Fort William Henry and, oh my God, it's homeschool week. What are the odds? So we go there and we're seeing them, shoot the muskets off and shoot the cannons off. And yeah, he's 7. It's like just little bits of it are sinking in right now, but it was a cool experience. When we go back when he's age 9, age 11, it's all just going to be like a little bit more. And I'm like realizing that there's all this history where I live, and my school didn't, because we were learning from a government approved curriculum that every child in America was getting. They didn't tailor it to what's actually in my area, places I could have visited and actually learned about the Hudson River, the Erie Canal, things I pass every day and never learned anything about, other than maybe there was a sentence in the textbook that I didn't care about anyway.
People learn by doing. Everyone does. It's just you learn so much faster if you're actually doing the thing. A lot of the successful business people I know started out at, let's just say their job was at a restaurant or whatever they did, and they worked there and they learned everything about it, and then they went to go start their own. And it's like, well, if they would have just sat in a class and learned about the restaurant business, they probably would have never been good at restaurant. But the kid that did it, I mean, one of my buddies was a busboy and worked his way up and then bought the restaurant, and now he has restaurants everywhere and he's developing hotels. But he would have never learned any of that stuff if he would have went to college and they said, hey, gave you some basic business information. It's like people always learn by doing, and I think kids are the same way. It's like if you're sitting in front of a desk all day, you're not going to learn as much as if I take you somewhere for probably 30 minutes and give you the same exact information and like you doing it and performing it. And they're like, oh, okay, it starts to click in your head. I mean, I learned that way. Like that's what I've been so good at, is like I'll just start something because without knowing anything or very, very little, I have just like basic knowledge, but I know the faster I go, the faster I'll like make mistakes, the faster I'll figure it out, and then in a year from now I'll be really good at it, or I'll learn a lot more than I would have just by like sitting there studying some business plan. Should I do this? Should I do this? And so that's actually what I think made me successful in all the stuff I started. It's just because I don't care. I'll just like go make mistakes, lose money, and then a year later I'm really good at it and I know a lot. And kids are the same thing, and I've noticed that with my kid. Like he's definitely a hands-on learning person for sure.
Oh, and so many boys are, too. I mean, my son's the same way. And even just thinking I spent like 16 years in a cubicle, like literally wasting my life away. And then I, had an idea to start a podcast interviewing homeschoolers because I was like, that's something I'd want to know. Like, are they as weird as they tell us? Is this? And so I had to learn, how to record a podcast, edit it, publish it, and then advertise for it. So it was like, wait, I need an Instagram page. And then now I realize that's actually the thing that like gets you any sort of income, or, that's what promotes the podcast. The podcast is like kind of the end result. When I was starting there, and it was like, oh no, I needed, so now my Instagram page, it's like, up to 95,000 followers, because people also have the same questions. They're thinking, especially after COVID, like,
maybe there's other ways.
Yeah. Are we
I think
supposed to be sending them here?
maybe, that was supposed to happen and reset the whole world. Like, hold on, wait a second. Maybe there's all these other ways that we didn't know about, or, these traditional systems aren't as good as they all said they were.
Yeah. I think that did happen. I don't think that was their intention. But that's what happened.
Hey, everyone, real quick, I just want to let you know this podcast is 100% independent. No ads, no sponsors, just real. If you're finding value in whatever we're doing here, the biggest help that you can give us is hitting subscribe and sharing this with someone who you think needs to hear it, or someone that it will provide value to. That's how we continue to grow. And if you did that, I would really appreciate it. If you could teach kids 3 real world life skills, what would you teach them?
Well, definitely knowing how to get food, water, and shelter is so all of our grandparents pretty much knew that stuff. And in one generation, by design, they have made it so that we don't know how to. I mean, I remember learning just in the last couple of years, you can bake sourdough bread. You can bake bread. It doesn't come from a grocery store. And that was so foreign to me. And now I bake bread every week. It's kind of just a tradition. We have fresh bread on the weekends. It's so cool. And but beyond that, just growing a garden and how much your kid would learn just from watching you grow a garden. My grandmother came from Poland. She knew all of this stuff. And within the one generation and you think about it, my mom grew up in the 60s, and it was women's liberation movement.
Yep.
Get to work. You're going to be free. You don't have to be under the rule of your husband, under the thumb of him anymore. So we put women in the workforce. Well, conveniently, the government got double the tax base now. If that wasn't the intent, that was definitely a perk for them. And they got a hold of our kids earlier on, because now, the baby needs to go to daycare now because mama's working.
Yes.
And sure, it was beneficial for some women, but now it's an expectation. And that's where it's kind of risky. We don't think about, maybe you can be home with your kids if you didn't get into $200,000 of debt for college. But all right, what would they need to know? So I think definitely the life skills of how to protect yourself. This is how I look at it. In an event, a crisis, I don't want to wait for FEMA, because they have proof that they are not. They are not the people that you want to depend on. So can my child find food, water, and shelter? And I wrote a children's book about, emergencies, how to talk to your kid about emergencies, because I realized they weren't learning that in school too. So it's do they know the basics of what to do in a fire? How to not talk to people on the internet that say that maybe they've got something to lure you. Oh, I got all these video games I'm getting rid of. Don't tell your parents. They wouldn't like that. Meet me at the corner, and then you never see them again. But so I would say just life skills in terms of that, street smarts. That seems to be what we've lost.
Which is the biggest thing you really need in life anyways. It's just common sense and street smarts. And you can figure out a lot of stuff on your own. Out of all the homeschool parents that you've interviewed that are following a homeschool program or non-traditional education, is the goal for them to get their kids in college, the most of them? How are they think about that? How do they think about once they post, and when do you graduate, I guess, of homeschool? What's just as early as they want? I mean, how does it work?
Yeah, that's the coolest thing too. And definitely something that isn't talked about a lot. So college is definitely not the main goal for most homeschoolers, I would think, because you can that veil has been unlifted, that this is a lot of debt to get in for, especially if you pay for room and board. I mean, it's 4 years of partying. Sorry, but most of the times that's
trust
it.
me, I didn't go to college, but one of my best friends did, and I still partied because I just met him up there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the goal is, and this is interesting too, because when you have that alternative education or, homeschooling, you can sit there and talk to your child every year about what is our goal? What is your goal? What do you like? Do you still not know? Let's still explore.
Yeah.
Let's walk into some businesses and ask what they do behind the counter. Let's see what is out there, because the jobs today are going to be so different when your child and my child get to 18 or 22.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
That's going to be the biggest difference on where this world goes. I mean, what they're going to think they're going to go to college for, that will not exist anymore, especially all these white collar kind of middle of America jobs. Gone.
Yeah, absolutely. So we get to have that conversation, what is your goal? And let's tailor what we're doing to meet that goal. And it can change every year. It can change every month if they want it to, right? Like, you don't get that in school, though. It's sure you might have like, okay, if, you know, AP Physics is open, we can probably put you in AP Physics next semester. But I mean, is that really tailored to what your child wants to do? So I would say that's step one. You have an ongoing conversation with your child about their interests and what they want for their
Okay.
own future. And if college is the way, you can definitely get into college, and you can even take college courses through your homeschool. Like, there's programs like ASU Universal Learner is one that comes to mind that I've had somebody on my podcast talk about. It's through Arizona State University, and they will accept high school, middle school students. You pay the money, you get the college credits for the course. Some are not even college credits. I think it depends on what you pay for, but some are just you're gaining the experience and you're putting on your transcript that you are able to complete these courses so that it proves to the college that you're going to do a good job there. And other ones, you actually get the credits. So by the time you get to college, you've paid a minimal amount of money for credits, and you only have a year or two left.
That was my question. The credits, are they the same amount of money that you would spend if you actually went to the school? I mean, besides the room and board, does it cost the same or is it
No.
cheaper?
It's cheaper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the same class, the same everything.
Yeah, and I've shared stuff on my Instagram page about that I can think of off the top of my head, and I should reshare them so they're at the top. But yeah, no, they're way cheaper, and yeah, you get the credits for a fraction of the money. And
So whenever they're, I guess, old enough, mature enough, and you think they know enough, that's technically when they graduate. And then you've been talking to them, or the parents are talking to them the whole time, and they probably have a good idea of what they want to do in life.
yeah, I mean, so in a state like mine, New York, you do have at a certain age tests that you would take. I think ours start in 3rd or 4th grade, and it's every other year. And as they get to middle and high school, it's every year. But the test, you say like, okay, this is the test I'm ordering. And then your child can take it as many times as they want, and you turn in the score that you're comfortable with.
Can they
So-
take it at any age? So can they just take all the high school tests when they're in the 8th grade, or technically in the 8th grade? Or
It
is
would depend on your state's requirements.
Okay.
Honestly. So like my state might have a little bit more of a requirement for what graduation means in the state of New York, but that's going to be different in every state. So hslda.org is where you would go to find out your state's laws. Homeschool Legal Defense Association is where you would go. You can click on your state. It tells you your laws. You can even become a member. It's like $100 a year. It's so cheap, and they'll fight for you legally as a homeschooler. And there are programs that you can even enroll your child in, and they'll report everything to your state for you. They'll go over it with you. You just sign off on it, and the reporting is actually done for you, so that you make sure that your kids are, dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's.
So most homeschool kids, do you have out of all the people you interviewed, do most of them end up going to college, or do you know? I'm just curious.
I would say no. I would say you definitely can, and some do, but I don't think that's the goal. I think it's more of like, what do you want to do? Do you need a degree for that? Do you want to be an entrepreneur? Do you want to be, maybe it is an HVAC technician or, an ambulance driver.
Of course.
Okay, well, what do I need for that? And there's a woman, Hannah Mariamo. She runs the program Degree Free, and she'll tell you there's like 80% of jobs you don't actually need the degree that they have listed in their description. That a requirement that you need, you don't actually need it. Once you apply for it and have the interview and you have the conversation, it turns out you actually didn't need that. So, maybe it's on-the-job training is what you need. Maybe it's a 2-year certification. So it's kind of just getting into what does the child actually need for the job that they want.
Public company information now, I think the top Fortune 100 companies have all said like, hey, we don't really care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like publicly came out on their earnings calls and said, we don't really care if people have a college degree anymore.
Yeah. And it's funny because people like the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, they don't send their kids to school. He got put on blast for running like a Montessori style school in his home. And I think it was because he had the child to teacher ratio was off, so that's what he was getting in trouble for. But and the funny part about that was, though, the Montessori style is not using screens at all. So like he's You look at his business, it is to promote screen usage, yet he doesn't let his own children use them. And you see that in a lot of, the video game creators when they interview people that work in those companies. Would you let your child play this? No, never.
There's another argument against homeschool, or a fear if a parent is not qualified, I guess, to teach school, I guess. And it could be the parent thinking that they don't know what they're doing. They're not a teacher. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe I'll mess up my kid, which I don't agree with. But what do you say to those people? I mean, you interview a lot of these parents.
So the first thing I would say is, if you're not qualified to teach your kid, why are you sending them to the same place that educated you? Are they going to do a better job now? I don't know, because
that was good.
Yeah, the teachers are even now more understaffed than they ever have been. Kids have more issues now than they ever have. Their divorce rates are 50%. Kids are coming in with, there's trauma going on in some of these households. There's child abuse. There's drug addiction. And we're just like putting all these kids into a melting pot.
Yes.
It's good for some. Maybe your child can elevate the ones that are having trouble. But if your child doesn't have that trauma going on, what are you doing to them? It's like, what do they say? Keep the top 3 people, the best, most successful people around you at all times. So what are you doing if those 3 people are like really going through some stuff?
I talk about that all the time, and it's something I try to explain to my kid. It's like, hey, you have to be around people that are going to help you raise your standards and push you to always do better, whoever it is, whether it's a friend or a family member or whoever. You have to always try to be around those people, and don't be around negative people. And at school, can't really get away from it, because if you go to a class, I could tell them that all day long, but then I send them to school, and if like 98% of the class is that, how can I can't blame him if he's around a bunch of bad people, because it's like that's where he's spending the majority of his day, with those people.
Yeah. And it's scary to choose an alternative, right? Because then it's like, if my kid ends up effed up, that's my fault. It's on me. Fault. It's on me.
I don't think it. I think it's the opposite. I actually think the parent is probably more qualified than the teacher to teach the kid.
Absolutely. But what we're taught, it's like, it's just easier to be like, they know what they're doing, right? Yeah. But like, it's still a government-run entity at the end of the day. Like, has their track record been that good? They're getting government funding. They have government-approved curriculum that they have to give you. So your kid is learning an agenda no matter what your beliefs are. Maybe you're for the agenda, maybe you're not. But there's still an agenda behind whatever. How that war actually took place. How, the crazy stuff going on in the school. There's still something behind it, which is driven by money.
What's your stance on kids starting to work really young? So they go to homeschool, the parents have homeschool. What have you heard from these homeschool parents? Do they want their kids to like immediately get a job when they're 15, 16 years old?
Well, I mean, my kids are 7 and 3, and they're both employees in my business.
Yep.
So they have jobs. They are on my Instagram page. We're putting it out there. Money gets put in an account for them.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I'd have to ask you if it's the right account, because I don't know. But money is put in their account every 2 weeks, and they're well aware that that is your job. You are recording this. Now, they might need therapy later on in life. I'm willing to deal with that and pay for that. If I have, put them on the social media too early, I get it. But
my kids are on there a lot, and I don't mind, because I'm going to teach them all the skills that they need to deal with whatever comes their way. Mm-hmm. And if I just don't see it as a bad thing, the way that I'm teaching them anyways. Yeah, they're on camera, but if I build the right skills and build the right mindset, it shouldn't really matter what happens in their life. They should be able to counter any negative thing that happens to them, is my hope. But, and that's what you have to do. That's all you can do. Because at some point they're going to grow up and make their own decisions. And so hopefully you've instilled those values and they still have the same values that you instilled in them. And so I think it's actually a better thing to do homeschool, because you are instilling those values a lot more than they would get in regular school.
Yeah. And then when, it just comes to the life skills of learning what you're teaching. I mean, what is classified as a job or not? Is it just chores in the house? But, they're learning what it takes to make a
Responsibility.
house go round, taking out the garbage or putting away their clothes. And as they get older, I mean, they can start a business at any age, whether it's a lemonade stand or they're making bracelets and, you start an Etsy account and now they're actually making money from that. Like, I don't think any of that is detrimental to them. Or if it's, a 12-year-old that is going to mow lawns for the neighbors, like that's just never going to be a bad thing. And
I don't think so either.
I see kids, they're so busy with school and homework and sports that, I'm at 15, my mother was dropping me off at any place that would hire a 15-year-old. And I've been working since the day I was 15.
I tried so hard to get a job when I was 15. I looked so young, and so nobody would hire me. It was like, finally my uncle did. It was the only way I could get a job. I was like really, really small and young looking.
Yeah, but you don't see that so much today,
Yeah.
right? Like they're not, one, it's kids just don't have time, but two, they don't care about having
Yeah.
money. Everything they need is in that smartphone in their mind.
Yeah.
They don't care about getting the money that, is going to then maybe turn an investment for them someday if they put it away, or even to buy a car. Many 16-year-olds don't even care right now about getting a vehicle because they don't have to go anywhere. I can play the video game with my buddy, 20 minutes away, but through the video game system. So
That's
they're
true.
fine doing that. It's such a crazy world. But I think I think a lot of homeschoolers do have jobs. Their kids do have jobs, and I think it's great.
What about the whole AI thing? Where do you think it's going, and what should you actually be preparing kids for? Because the next 10 or 20 years is going to be so different than what's going on right now. And so if you think your kid's going to go to college and do good, and he is my son's age, you're sadly mistaken, because I don't even know if some colleges probably won't be around. I mean, I don't know. There's going to be a point when you have all these robots and a lot of the middle class jobs are gone completely, that they won't need to go to school. There's just like that old traditional model is just not going to work anymore. It's going to fall apart.
Yeah. I mean, and even doctors, they're doing surgeries through robotics and stuff. But
You're just going to need less of everything. So the argument that people have is like, oh, you're still going to need doctors and attorneys. Well, I have attorney friends and their caseload is way higher than it's ever been, and they do it with less attorneys. And so even though there probably still will be attorneys around, there's not going to be 100 in a firm. There's going to be a really small firm, and they're going to be able to do a lot of caseload. And the same thing with doctors, and the same thing with engineers. It's going to be the same thing. And so there's just going to be less jobs available for traditional like college route that they would go.
Yeah, the AI is scary, and
It's weird. I don't know where it goes. Like,
Yeah,
I'm usually pretty good about like long-term thinking and
Yeah.
predicting the future. No freaking idea. I
I
don't know
know.
what happens.
and the thing is, like I mean, and especially in the homeschool community, you get a lot of pushback from parents because they're like, "No, we want the old school way, like living the little house on the prairie lifestyle." And I get that, and I love that, but there's also a side that is like, you have to be prepared for what the future is, and how will you be prepared if you don't even know how to use it? So just like we're kind of the first era of parents that had to
deal with it.
to
Yeah.
deal with social media,
Yeah.
even.
It is.
And it came out when we're about the same age, in our 20s, late, maybe MySpace
Yeah.
and Facebook.
Yeah,
You needed a college email address
Account.
to get on Facebook.
My buddy had one when he was in college, and I'd just go party with him.
Yeah.
But he's like, hey, check out this thing, and it was a college thing at the time.
Yeah. And then like 5 years later, your mom's on it and you're like, well, what the heck? But so then when our kids started using it, we were like, oh, it's just that innocent little thing where you post a picture and your friends comment on it. But then it turned into the Snapchat and pictures disappearing and this and that. And then before we know it, we realized, whoa, this is way too much for little kids to actually be experiencing. And then their brain is connecting synapses, and now they need that quick
Yeah.
screen change, or else they can't even concentrate, let alone read a book.
That's
right?
where I made the first mistake with my son, when he was not talking and I was letting him watch YouTube. Terrible mistake, but same thing. He's just like super short attention
It's a
span.
dopamine hit.
Then when I try to teach him something, he's already trying to go back to the YouTube thing like 10
Yeah.
seconds later. And so when I pulled that out, it was the best thing I ever did. His learning capacity went way up, and then he really started paying attention to the stuff I was teaching him.
Yeah.
And so then I didn't take it away completely. Well, I did. It was all the way gone, and then we would teach him how to improve on his skills. And if he did, he got to watch it for an hour. But it was really, I turned it in just TV. I was like, you can watch whatever you want, but not YouTube. So because
Yeah.
you go down these weird rabbit holes and start like be interested in these weird things. And so best thing I ever did, because it did increase his attention span on other stuff that I was actually trying to teach him.
Yeah.
And so it's a new
dopamine
age.
hit.
Yeah,
it's a
it's
drug
yeah.
for sure. And we didn't know because nobody came out and told parents this is what it's doing to your kid, right? We had, so this is now our responsibility as a parent to be like, what is AI doing? What can I learn about it? Because like I use it with the business all the time.
And they have to be able to use it, and they have to understand it. You can't like hide it from them and think it's just going to go away. You have to be able to teach them about what's going on. And it's crazy that they're not in school. It's the same thing. It's like, well, they should be teaching them about it. They're going to have to use it at some point. I think that's where some of these jobs go, is like it's one person that could be an engineer, but he still also has to know how to use AI, and then he's like working with it, and it increases his work capacity, right? And it makes one person be able to do the job of 10 people. And so they're going to have to use AI to be able to be prepared for the future anyway. So you can't hide it from them. You can't say, I don't want you looking at it, I don't want you using it. And it's the same thing with social media. You just got to teach them what's bad, what's good, and teach them how to use it and how to be beneficial and not negative.
Yeah. And so I think the scary part is like when you look at, they talk about transhumanism, and I know that sounds like, oh, that's like a sci-fi film, but no, there is a level of people up there that want to, implant a chip and all that. So I think like you said, a way to use it safely. How can this benefit you in your business? Because I know for me, like with the Instagram page and the podcast, it's like, if I'm going to put a stance up, I'm not using AI, but all of the other people that have a podcast are, what I'm spending hours now doing something that could take 2 minutes. And what am I taking away? I'm taking that time away from my kids. Is that what I want? So yeah, there's a smart way to do things, and, and there's going to be trial and error. But I think the detrimental part is when we're like, yes, implant that in me because you'll think for me. And then, you do get a Terminator situation.
I used to not think that. I was like, the Terminator thing seems super far-fetched.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know now, like the
it's
way
so
that
real.
it's like, I know the way that it's advancing so fast, and then the whole robot thing, man, it's going to get weird.
It is. And I mean,
there's going to be so much good though. In anytime you have something that gets adopted worldwide, social media, anything, 10% of users are bad, and there'll be some negative, but I think it'll also be so much positive to where you don't have to clean your house all day long, and you have this robot. It's like dirt cheap, and that's all they do all day. Then you spend more time with your kids, and you teach your kids. It's like there is going to be a lot of positive, and then of course there's going to be some negative, as with anything that gets adopted worldwide.
Yeah.
But I think there'll be a lot of positives with it. I think people have a pretty negative outlook on what's going to happen, but again, I think there's good people out there and there's bad people, and I think it'll be more beneficial than not. But when I used to think the Terminator thing could never happen, I'm second guessing that now. A version of that could probably happen at some level, for sure.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It is. I agree with you though. It really is about doing things with intention, and I think that is what parenting like needs to get back to. I mean, if it ever was, who knows? But we're just so busy. Our world has busied us so much that we're just, alarm goes off. You have to be here. You have to be there. You have to be there. Someone needs this from you. Someone needs that from you. This is your test. This is what you have to learn. This is where you have to go today. And like, if anything, the homeschooling world has taught me, you don't have to do any of that. Like, take a step back. If you have enough money to eat and put shelter over your head, okay, now let's figure out, like, what do you want to do with your day? What do you want to do with your kids? What do you want them to learn? So, and AI has definitely helped me in that. I ask it questions all the time. But and how is it different than asking Google 5 years ago, right? Like, Google had
just better answers.
Right. It's giving you a more direct answer, but it's really not different. It's a database of information, and it's pulling out what it's been given. Now you have to realize that it's going to tell you what it wants you to think too, like whoever's running the game behind the scenes. So have that, teach your children that. And that's part of teaching them to think critically. Okay, does this answer make sense? Should we like verify it somehow? And that's kind of how I've learned to look at the world since 2020. Does this make sense? And if not, like, is there somebody benefiting from me thinking this way? And usually there's a financial benefit somewhere.
Yeah, I think that that's another thing that they don't do in school, or that the kids don't learn in traditional school, is the whole mindset piece.
Yeah.
Discipline and critical thinking and confidence and just everything that you learn out of life that, traditional school just doesn't prepare you for.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
Yeah. And like you were talking about being an entrepreneur or maybe going a different route, it's like, just to give the kids the confidence to think outside those boxes.
That's the thing, is
teacher, lawyer, doctor.
Yes. It's like, the old thing was, well, because they have their parents telling them that it's like, hey, you go to school, you get good grades, then you go to college, and then you figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
And like, that's the only path. That was the only path that was available, instead of, you can pretty much do anything you want now, especially with the internet, and all the information is there. It's really about taking action and execution and failing, like I said before. And school doesn't promote that. So in real life, you take action and you fail, and you learn from your mistakes, and you don't do that anymore, and you just continue to do that, and you get really good at the thing you're trying to do. And school gives you that fear of never taking action on anything.
Right.
It's like, oh, I have to know what I'm going to do in life. I have to know this before I start. I have to have this business plan that I learned in school to go and do the thing. And that is so far from the truth. I don't know one person that graduated with like a MBA and built all these crazy companies. Not one.
Right. Yes. It busies us so much that we're not letting kids be bored enough to just figure it out themselves.
Figure things out, which is a really
Yeah.
awesome thing for them to have in life.
Yes. And I fall victim to that too, because I'm like, okay, I have to record a podcast or I have to do this. Can you just go watch this TV? Where when I do say to them, like when my she's 3, when she's like, Mommy, can you put on Blippi for me? And I'm like, in a half hour,
Yeah.
okay? Go do something else. They will think of the most creative things to do. And I'm like, look, she didn't even give me a hard time about that.
It's
and
hard as
then
parents.
they're like going and, taking out the stapler and the scissors, and like half the things they do are probably going to end up with us in the emergency room. But so far, knock on wood, they've been okay. They're playing with the scissors. My son's taking out his knife and doing stuff, starting a fire. Like when you really just let them be bored, we're so afraid that that's like bad
bad
parenting
thing.
to let them be
Yeah.
bored. Oh my God, they have nothing scheduled for today. Let's put them in karate. Let's put them in dance. And like, no, it's okay. They can be bored. They're actually going to learn so much more from that, and so much more about themselves.
Yeah, I think subconsciously as a parent, it's easy to fall into that because you want to take care of them. So you're like, oh no, let me fix this for you, or let me do this for you, and you really have to like not like fight yourself to do that, because you do it in the back of your mind. You're like, they're still your kids. You still want to take care of everything that happens to them, and it's like the worst thing that you can do is like always jump in and do every single thing for them. Or like you said, it's like, Dad, I'm bored. Oh, here's iPad. It's like, go figure it out. Like, you can figure it out. You like doing this, go do this. Hey, why don't we do this? Like, you just pushing back a little bit is good, and it's just hard. It's hard as a parent to make yourself do that, because you do want to take care of somebody, and you don't want them to go through the hardships that you went through, although that's good for them. And so I think that is one of the biggest things. It's been the hardest for me. I have to catch myself too, even though I have to force myself, like, don't do it. Don't just give in because he wants to. Don't do that because he's complaining about being bored or complaining about not having something to do today. Don't let him give in and just let him do whatever he wants. Like, I still force, discipline and just hard work and building his self-confidence and all that stuff. I have to make myself do it because, like I said, it's really tough. It's as tough as that's what you fall back on as a parent. And that's like natural human instinct, I think, is to take care of somebody.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, just when I think of things that like I was fearful of before committing to homeschooling, it was like, well, will they learn everything they need to know to be successful in life? And I think like taking the mindset of, how do I teach them how to find out what they need to know? Like, that is really more. And what I mean by that is, if they find that they have an interest in, maybe they want to be a marine biologist. Okay, well, what do you need to learn to find out about that? Or, maybe it is World War II. Like, where are you going to find the resources? How are you going to figure it out? And so you don't want them to just graduate with like, I learned X, Y, and Z, and now I'm ready for college. Or I learned A, B, and C, and now I'm ready to graduate college. It's like you want them to figure out how to find out the answers.
Best skill in life. That's the best skill in life. And it's the hardest thing to learn because they have to learn through failing, like I said before. And one of the things that made me successful and what will make anybody successful is taking action. So you're just like, hey, go figure it out. And you have to do it. You can't just keep talking about it. And then just making mistakes. And then you learn from your mistakes. And in a year, you're usually like really good at the thing that you tried to figure out.
Yeah.
And so I do think that's one of the biggest skills that parents could definitely teach their kids. And, don't be scared to take action and go figure out the thing that you're wanting to learn about. And then, of course, you're probably not going to be good at it at first. Nobody's good.
Right.
It's like, so you have to tell them that. It's like, when anybody started anything, they are not good. And it actually takes doing the thing to get good. And so you can't be scared to start. And
Right.
so that's the stuff I try to like instill. It's like, just remember, nobody's good. Because, them giving up quick, I'm not good at it. It's like, you have to keep going. You have to keep making mistakes. You have to get, you have to get better. And that's how you figure it out.
Oh, it's so true. And, when you think of like, I'll talk to some people that are like, oh, we did Latin and we did it. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, I'm not teaching my kid Latin. Like, I have no desire to learn Latin.
Yeah.
At least it's not relevant to anything in my life right now. So, that was a big hurdle for me to get over. Like, well, what are all the things though? And do we have to teach Latin or whatever to be a successful homeschool family? And it's like, no, that family teaches Latin because they want to. It's important to them for whatever, maybe developing story or maybe they're the Bible, I don't know, but it's relevant to them and that's why they're doing it. Do you have to do it? No. Like, what do you want to learn out? Maybe it is like Dad does, I told you my husband does commercial HVAC. Well, maybe it's that from age 12 and up, my kid learns from him in the business. And like, that's the homeschool. I've talked to so many people that actually have, like, this one woman, Natalie, had a real estate business and she homeschools through the real estate business. So she's having, her one child learn how to make the phone calls that need to be made. And that's huge for kids.
Super
They do
vital.
not want to be talking on a phone. I don't even want to be talking on a phone.
Communication is the other biggest skill that they can have. Taking action and failing, and then communication is the other one.
Yeah.
Because it gives them the confidence to be able to articulate their ideas to people, and which is a big thing, and then get people to like you, and it gives you sales, and it gives you, confidence, and fear of rejection is overcome because people are like, you're communicating with people on the phone. I do think communication is like one of the ones, and I did not learn that early, and so I'm probably overdoing it with my kid because I do think I would have been so much further and had a better life if I would have been able to communicate earlier on. I was like behind the scenes guy my whole life and nervous about being like the front person. And, even though I ran a company with a lot of people, I still wasn't the greatest manager and the greatest leader because I was like, oh, I'll just be behind the scenes. I'm the operations guy. And I could have helped those people so much more. I could have, grew the company so much more. And communication is really needed in any path. Whether they go be a doctor, go be an attorney, even if they go the very, very traditional route, you still have to be able to communicate with all the people you're working with. You have to be able to communicate with your staff and your managers and your other people. Like it is by far one of the best skills that a kid could have for sure.
Yeah. And when you talk about AI, like that's something AI can't take, right?
No.
That's the personality. Can your child have a conversation
That's a good point.
and feel where is that person coming from and how can I lead them into closing this sale or, figuring out what that person's weaknesses are so that you can help them along in that path, right? That's something AI can't really do.
Not at all. They're never going to be able to take that way. I mean, I don't know. There's going to be some pretty weird stuff that happens in the future, but I kind of think what I'm hoping is what's going to happen is AI is going to make a lot of things really cheap. And for instance, if you like go in a restaurant and you go into a fast food place and it's all robots, you can get your food and leave, and the cost will be low. And then there's still going to be people that want to go and pay for an experience and go talk to the waiter and talk to someone else. And so those things will become more valuable, and like a live event or something's become more valuable because all the stuff you see online is going to get to a point where like, is it real? Is it not real? I don't know. And so I'm hoping that that's where it goes. I kind of think that there'll be two levels of every product. It's like a lot of people are going to want the dirt cheap thing, and it's going to be cheap because it's going to be automated and robots and this. And a lot of people are like, you know what? I'll pay a little bit more to be able to talk to somebody and be able to communicate and go to an event and meet people and go to a restaurant and talk to people and get a good experience and hear everybody else talking. So hopefully that's where it goes. I kind of think that that's kind of where a lot of experiences and a lot of business goes in life a little bit.
That makes sense because, I mean, you could watch a concert online right now,
Yeah,
right?
but
But
you're
if
still
they're
gonna
coming
go
to
pay.
your town,
Yeah.
you're spending the $150 on the ticket to go see them if it's something that you really enjoy. And it's sold out. So just somebody's paying to
Of
go
course.
have that live experience.
As of now, I think it'll get more so because then when everything becomes so blurred where you don't know what's real, and like I can't tell if you're AI on your podcast or not, like because I think it'll get to that point.
Yeah.
And then probably some sort of blue check mark for people that like, hey, I'm a real person kind of thing, maybe. I think
Yeah.
at some point, but I do think people will pay more for those experiences, and then there'll be experience that you could just go and pay like some little money to go do. I know it'll be a cheaper version of it.
And when you think about it, they say like, oh, you know, you read the textbook because that's verified and true, or read any book. Anybody can publish a book, right? Anybody can pay to have their textbook published to make you think a certain way that may or may not be true. So it's not like the concept is still the same as what it's always been. I mean, from going back to the Bible, you know, there have been, I know I was probably going to get you banned, but like there have been, and the Roman Empire was telling the scribes, input this and leave that out from the beginning. So it's not different now. It's like you still have to decipher what makes sense. So I think, yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things you want to teach your kids. Like, does that make logical sense?
Hey, everyone, real quick, I just want to let you know this podcast is 100% independent. No ads, no sponsors, just real. If you're finding value in whatever we're doing here, the biggest help that you can give us is hitting subscribe and sharing this with someone who you think needs to hear it or someone that it will provide value to. That's how we continue to grow. And if you did that, I would really appreciate it.
Grand scheme of it.
Yep. Think logically, have some street smarts, you'll be all right. So if somebody's considering homeschooling, what books or what courses or what programs are good and should they look into?
So, and that's like one of the biggest things too.
Yeah,
like,
where do you
what
start?
curriculum do I use?
Yeah, where do they start? Where's
So-
a good place to start if I want to pull my kids out of school? I don't even know anything about what curriculums are available. Where do they go to learn?
So in that, on my Instagram page, I even have like start your first 30 days here. Here's a free guide. Like, here it is. And, you know, my recommendation now that I've talked to all these families would be don't even go to the curriculum yet. Like, de-school yourself and learn your kid. Like, learn how your kid, their likes, their dislikes, repair your relationship with them, because chances are if they've been in school, you've had a lot of time apart.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there would be books that I would tell the parent to read, like, for instance, I mentioned before, Dumbing Us Down from John Taylor Gatto. Alex Newman has a good one called Indoctrinating Our Children to Death. I've had him on the podcast to talk about that. And you know, there's a few books on, like, how kids learn best and the reality of the school system, because I think you do have to de-school yourself to learn, like, unlearn, I guess would be a good word. Unlearn the things that we've learned, and then work with your child in that time on, like, just like, let's play some board games together. Let's go to a park. Let's go to a museum together. Like, really kind of like using that time to just grow more of a bond together. And, you know, there's book lists, Read Aloud Revival from Sarah Mackenzie. She has all these amazing book lists, and, like, I'll go on her site, order books to come right to my library. Say, you know, you can pick my kid's 7 and he likes the outdoors. Here's a good book list for you. And she'll give you, 20 books. I order them to come right to the library through an app. And then I go pick them up at the library. And now I have books that are, like, actually have story and teach value and morals. And, other than, like, when I go to my local library, it's got, like, the craziest books sitting up And that's what your kid grabs first, right? Hey, this one's sitting out. They're not going through each and every one. So it's just kind of like a nice way to know that your kids are getting quality books. And they call that like the Charlotte Mason books, living books, which are more like teaching value and teaching some sort of moral. That was the Charlotte Mason approach to homeschooling and education. But so I would say that would be the first thing I would do. You go to hslda.org to see what your laws are so that you're in compliance and submit what you have to do. But I would say don't worry about the curriculum at all. Obviously, then you're going to have to do some down the way. So, popular curriculums are like the good and the beautiful. And are they popular because they're the best? Are they popular because they have the best marketing? I don't know. I've used that one. We like it. I use for reading. I know that's a fear of a lot of parents. Like, how am I going to teach my kid to read? I'm not a teacher. And I would say you definitely don't have to be a teacher at all. Finland has one of the highest rates of like how well the kids do, once they graduate, and they don't even do anything formal until age 7. Everything is just fun and exploration before that. So they're not even teaching this is the letter A, this is the sound A makes until their kid is 7. Because it's just going to come that much quicker. Because like the brain is just more formed, developed. They can relate that like, oh, an A makes that sound and I'm going to need it if I have to find a show that I want on Netflix and I got to learn how to type it in, right? They have a need for wanting to spell. So, and that's hard because I fall victim to it too. My son is 7 now. We've been working on reading for a couple of years and I was so frustrated. Like, why can't you just learn these easy words? And even still, I'm like that. But he's picking it up now that he's 7. And it's funny because like age 7 is a big year for them. They're losing teeth. It's like part of their developmental process. So why are we frustrating kids before we have to? There's no reason that they need to know how to read at age 5 unless they want to, and then roll with it. But yeah, there's lots of curriculums. OutSchool is even an online curriculum. If you're cool with learning online, maybe you're a working parent and you're like, well, I work from home. I can't teach my kid one-on-one, but they can be here with me while they're doing their schoolwork and I work. OutSchool is a very popular one. Legacy Online School. Time for Learning is another online school. So there's so many curriculums out there that you would actually be overwhelmed getting into them. And I had a whole curriculum series where I just talked to people about curriculums. And the truth of the matter is there's no perfect curriculum. They're all a little bit different. And your kid's going to be, your 7-year-old might love this curriculum and your 2-year-old might hate it. So it really is trial and error. And if you can do that through, like, maybe you can borrow someone's old curriculum, maybe on a Facebook group that you're in with other homeschooling parents. Like, hey, do you have an, kindergarten level of the good and the beautiful? I could try it out. Maybe the pages are all marked up, but you can look at it and see, try a couple lessons out. Is that what your kid likes? AI, you can use AI by,
That's what I figured there would be
my
some
son
version.
is 7 and he really likes dirt bikes. Like what curriculums, he's a hands-on learner. What curriculum might fit that, use it to your advantage so you're not wasting money. And there's also like curriculum swaps too. Just everybody brings their old curriculum here. You can test it out.
Any other advice to give to maybe parents that are thinking about homeschooling or parents that are just started?
So I would say my advice would be to like not worry so much about what the school system is doing. Like your intention is to not do it like that. So don't create school at home. Like don't sit your kid at a desk and tell them, now it's time for English, now it's time for spelling, and now it's time for reading, and now it's time for math. Like you're creating an experience that they want to love. And you're going to fight with your kid if you're doing it that way. I did it too,
To make them want to learn.
Yeah.
Is the whole goal.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe today they're just not into it. Like don't push it because that's what the school system does. There's time. Your kid, I was told once, your kid can learn everything they need to know to be successful in life in their high school years, and everything before that is just exploring. And that was like, wow. And that's so true because I don't remember anything I learned in school. I was in school up until I was age 22, and yet here I am. I have a podcast and I have an Instagram page. I didn't know anything about that stuff. I just figured out how to learn it. And so, like, your kid doesn't have to learn to read fluently by age 7. That will not determine how successful they are in life. And then, like, what is success to you? Talk
Everybody's
about
different.
that.
Everybody's
Right.
different. Yeah.
Because, like, is it having your own business? Is it being a homemaker? Like, what does that mean to you? It's going to be something different to everybody. And really just talk about like what your values are. Some families, it's like having a very biblical view, and other ones, it's knowing history really well. So like figure out what is important to you guys, and then like go off of that, because it's going to look different. So you don't have to worry about hitting all 9 subjects every single day, and you'll find that they're all intertwined, and they can be all intertwined in a theme that your child actually enjoys and cares about.
Anything else that we missed that could benefit maybe new parents, or parents are thinking about pulling them out and they're just worried?
Well, I know to me it just sounded so foreign. Like I didn't want the weird kid, right? And then
That's what everybody says. Oh, they're not going to
yeah.
be socialized. You can't do that.
And they're just gonna be weird. But I look at like what's in the schools now, and you've
Yeah,
got
what
kids
is
dressing up
weird?
as
Yeah,
cats.
what's weird? Like,
Yeah, and like my kid probably does look weird to some other kids because he does like to start fires, and he's right now he's like building a little tent, but he's doing this with our neighbor who goes to public school too. So like that neighbor has a desire to like be out in the woods and be out all day and stuff. So I mean, we do not lack socialization at all. My kids are 7 and 3, and there's something different to do every day if we wanted to. Some days I have to pump the brakes and just be like, well, let's just have a day at home and be bored. I guess like the fear of what your family will say to you, that's a big thing, right? Like my family thinks I'm nuts for homeschooling, but when you think back to how it's always been,
yeah,
we've always taught our kids.
if our parents' age, that's what they came from, and so they're going to say, well, you can't do that, well, because they just don't know any different. And
Yeah.
they don't know a different way, and so I think that's where the cycle, like people, once you break that, it's going to make your kids think a whole different way. They're not going to think the way your parents think about go to school, go to college. This is the only path, because they got to see this whole other path.
Yeah. And it's all part of that onion too, right? Like once you realize the education system has been corrupted, and you start talking to other homeschooling families, and you're like, oh, there's glyphosate in our food? Like maybe we should have food without that.
Isn't it crazy how in the last year, like all this stuff that they wanted you to think, whether it's food or school or government, it's kind of vaccines, like all of it's coming out, and it's kind of like, oh, if you don't think that they were suppressing information now, I mean, you're definitely mistaken, because there's a lot of things coming out now that the traditional way of eating, and the traditional way of doing things, and the traditional way of getting your kids vaccinated, the traditional way of this, all of it's coming out saying it was like, wait a second, maybe that was wrong. Yeah. And so I think if I was giving advice to a parent, I don't think you're going to mess up your kid. I think parents are worried that if I pull my kid out of school, I'm going to mess it up. And I think it's the opposite. I think you're going to care a lot more than any teacher does. And a lot of more one-on-one time is going to make your kid learn better anyways. Even if it's, I think most parents go, well, it's 8 hours. Like I need to teach him for 8 hours. That's what they're thinking. And I think it's far from the truth. I mean, even at school, they're not learning for 8 hours. So don't be scared, parents. They're not sitting there learning in every class for 8 hours a day. It does not happen. They're learning for less than an hour for sure. Yeah. And the rest of it's just busy stuff and trying to keep them from going crazy.
The biggest validation I've had was all of the teachers that have come on my podcast to say they quit their job to homeschool their kids. I mean, the first time a teacher reached out to me to come on the podcast, I was like, oh my God, it's a diamond in the rough. Like, yes, you got to come on and tell me about it. And then it was just like message after message. Can I come on? Can I talk about my experience in the school? Can I talk about why I quit teaching to homeschool? And I'm like, wow, I thought I was crazy for leaving a government job to homeschool because I was leaving the pension. These teachers are leaving pensions, master's degree in some states. In New York, you need a master's degree. So all that college debt that they're now throwing away, basically. They still have to pay it, but they're not even getting the income because they see firsthand what's going on in there. And you can send your kid to the best schools. It doesn't mean that that teacher has the resources to help out your kid better than you can. They are understaffed, under-resourced, and they are following what somebody who's funding the system is telling them to do.
An outdated way of teaching.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. And I think that you shouldn't be scared. You're not going to mess up your kid. You're going to do a way better job than whatever this traditional system is that's out there.
Yeah.
I think I get a lot of feedback from teachers too, because I do talk about like, hey, education, they're missing all this stuff, and it's pretty stupid the way they teach kids. And so I get a lot of messages from teachers like, you're 100% right. I quit teaching because of this. I agree they should have changed it a long time ago, and I've tried to. And I've actually had a really cool teacher on that he's doing everything he can he still kind of follows a traditional system, but he's introducing all these life skill stuff into his class. It was really an amazing guy that's trying to do as much as he can for his students in this new world of education without, I guess, completely not following the system and still staying in compliance. But it was a really cool podcast he came on.
Yeah. And most teachers, they're either brand new to the system and they don't want to, shake it up. They want to just, I want to keep my job and get my tenure.
Well, yeah.
Or they've gotten their tenure and they're like, I just want to get to retirement. So there's not a lot of teachers like him that are willing to stand against the system because they don't want to get fired.
I know. Sad. Well, thank you for coming on. I think that hopefully we educated parents enough that are thinking about pulling the trigger to not be scared.
Oh, thank you for having me. Your kids won't be weird because, what's weird? We're all weird, right?
Exactly. All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.